All right, my name is Luke Holtzman, and you are listening to the Free Base Podcast. This is the first podcast that I have that I'm doing here, pilot episode, and I got my cousin Nick Harsted here.
How we doing?
And really, all we're doing is kind of trying to figure out what this podcast is going to be because I don't know what it's going to be. So I asked Nick to come here and kind of help me figure that out. So I guess maybe I'll just start with kind of what I'm thinking for it.
I'd like to just cut in real quick. I know that surprises you. I think it works out well that I'm on the first podcast because I need to describe this man to you people before he begins this journey in his life.
All right, and if I could just cut you off for a second, I'm going to put my dog in the kennel.
The dog is trying to haunt me. Every time he sees me, he tries to haunt me. The dog's name is Balls. You'll hear a lot about
His
Balls.
name is Rocket. Balls is his Christian name.
Balls is his Christian name. But yeah, I've obviously known Luke my whole life. He is a guy that I'll get a random call every 3 to 5 weeks with a new idea. And I'm going to be honest, a lot of his ideas are actually really good. They just require a lot of execution on a lot of different levels. And if they make sense. But this one is one he called me up. He said, I've wanted to have a podcast for a while. He has a couple ideas. I've been thinking of ideas now. I just spend my time sometimes thinking of ideas for him. But we're going to see how this one plays out. We're just going to kind of talk about just podcasts in general, I suppose. We listen to a lot.
Yeah, I don't know what would you say your top 3 podcasts are that you listen to? How long are they, and what genre are they?
I was going to say, when you say top, you're talking like
your most.
What are they like? Like, what are they covering? What are the topics?
What are the 3 podcast shows that you listen to the most, and how long are they? Because I guess we're trying to figure out what are the things that make a podcast successful.
Yeah, when you have someone like obviously Rogan, we both listen to Rogan a lot.
That's
a huge variety. So you can't really, even if you say Rogan, there's so many varieties of podcasts. I would say he can get away with like a 3-hour podcast.
You don't think I could do like a long form 3-hour podcast?
I'm thinking we're going to talk about kind of the pros and the cons of like what your podcast can be about. As far as just having content that random people are going to want to listen to. Like Joe brings on geniuses. Joe brings on famous people.
Yeah.
For you, it might be more of like if it's people that don't have, the world doesn't know who I am, right? So why do they care about me, right? So I would say 30 to 40 minutes to start at least, just to get an idea.
I guess it all depends on how long the conversation goes. If we're not stuff to talk about after 30 minutes, then that's all it'll be. But
I'm thinking of a standpoint of clicking too. Like when you listen to a podcast, I always know before I start a podcast, I know how long it is every time. The ones I think are like perfect length. For example, I listen to a lot of White Sox podcasts, 30 to an hour, and it's perfect because you can get a lot. You can be productive, but also have like that quick snippet of in 30 minutes this podcast is over, and I'm going to have all my information.
I guess when I'm listening to a podcast, because I just want to learn a thing. Like I listen to this entrepreneurs podcast, Entrepreneurs on Fire. They're all like 20 to 30 to 40 minutes. And I like that they're short because I click on the title because it says this podcast is about Facebook marketing. So I know that I'm going to turn that podcast on, and in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to learn something about Facebook marketing. When I listen to a podcast like a comedy podcast like Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast, is one I really like. Those are like around an hour, and I don't mind that they're longer because I'm not trying to learn anything.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to laugh. I think the Joe Rogan experience is kind of a mix of those where it's part of it's you want to learn something, part of it's just entertainment. So when I'm working and I'm got my headphones in, I don't mind just having something in for 3 hours. And I guess I got to decide, is this podcast going to be like short and to the point? Is it going to be like just something you throw on in the background? I don't know.
Mine goes back and forth with like length because there's sometimes even people I love that like new podcast comes out with, Rogan, someone I really love. Sometimes just the 3.5 is just you can't physically listen to that and take in all that information. But there's also podcasts that after 30 minutes, I'm like, God, I didn't want that to end. I want that to keep going. So I guess it's finding the happy medium. I would say for you just to start, it just needs to be kind of like if a random person sees, 22 minutes, I can manage that, or 35. Yeah. Like that's not that long. In my life. That's like a drive somewhere.
Like say I have a conversation with someone and it lasts for 2 hours. That could be a one two hour episode, or that could be for 30-minute episodes. I mean, it all just depends on how I break it up, really.
Yeah, it could be you take the podcast as long as it goes, and then if you have to shorten it up because you feel like it was just kind of rambling, because I know how we talk in a certain setting, and a lot of it is ramble. I mean, but it's also like just getting your ideas.
Yeah.
And I thought about this too. When you said, when you're working, you have your headphones and you have your podcast. I'm a guy and you're a guy as well, I think, with our jobs too. We work kind of in our own heads, right? Mm-hmm. It's very much us and us. So we're headphones in, podcast in. How do you decide day to day? I guess we go back to the question you asked me. What are the top three types of podcasts I listen to? I listen to podcasts, like when it comes to Joe Rogan's, I love podcasts about like space, aliens, things that are so ancient civilizations, things that are just crazy that are like, could be real, and if they were, be wicked. Like, obviously, ancient civilizations are obviously
so
real,
it's mostly just entertainment. You're just kind of...
like, to get knowledge of, like, whoa, that's cool.
It's knowledge and it's entertainment. You like the blend of knowledge and entertainment.
I don't really like comedy podcasts much, and which is weird, because I like to, like, laugh and, like, but I just don't feel like I connect with them well.
So maybe it's not entertainment. It's just, it's...
I enjoy learning about it.
You're learning, but in a way, in a delivery that's just, like, it's easy to digest. It's fun to listen to.
So that would be my first type, is like learning knowledge. Then I love like my sports, my two different sports teams that I like. I'd like to listen to podcasts just to keep up with what they're doing, but that's basic. And then the last one is like, obviously I'm a big motivational person. So like people that make it, people that came from this and can't believe the life that they have now because of where they were. Them are like my top three. But it's also, and you would probably agree, whatever podcast you're listening to that day, say Monday you listen to one and Tuesday you listen to a different genre, we'll call it, your whole day is different. Like, your mind is different. Like, there's specific podcasts I'll put on based on my mood at the time. Yeah. If I'm, like, feeling like kind of a type of way that I'm, like, not loving, and I'm like, all right, I can distract myself right now with a White Sox podcast. Would you say you feel that? Like, when you wake up, you don't know. It's kind of like where's your attitude? Where's your, like, vibe that day?
No, yeah. Like, if I'm having a bad day, I get to work, and it's early, and I'm on a job that I hate, and I don't have a good attitude about it, I want a comedy podcast. I want something to distract me, to make me laugh. But say I'm feeling good, I'm motivated, I know I got this podcast I'm recording tonight, I'm going to throw on, like, some Entrepreneurs on Fire, and I'm going to go to Entrepreneurs on Fire, I'm going to type into the search bar podcasts, and I'm going to listen to a few different episodes that are related to podcasts, just to kind of get my head in the right space and just kind of get thinking about stuff like that.
Yeah, I do. I definitely use them to get my head in the right space. I think it's probably safe to say, like, we can eliminate certain things. Like, we both don't come from nothing and, like, have built this massive empire. Well, we can't really speak to that, probably.
No. Here's what I also want to say. I don't really necessarily want to become an expert in anything.
That's one of my... I thought about this, too.
I don't want to say I've got one podcast a week. I don't want to spend that whole week researching so that I can debate this person. I want them to be the expert, and I just sort of ask them questions.
So, and I thought about that, too. One thing too with like, so there's not like one thing, like you're not, you don't know a lot about space or, soil or like climate, like politics, all these things that you don't have to know. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, a lot of people have politics about that type of stuff. But I also think about, so he kind of used the word debate. We didn't tell the people, but that was his first thought was, I want to have a debate podcast. The couple faults I have with the debate podcast is, debates always turn into arguing every time. It's an argument. It's people yelling over top of each other. Yeah, is that are we doing it for entertainment? Are you doing it for...
No, I want it... I mean, yeah, it's got to be entertaining, but I want it to be... Like, I want you to really learn something if you...
But yeah, there's not... The problem is, unless you get some intelligent people that actually debate and not... Yeah. My way is right. It can just be very loud and annoying.
And that's why I think until I find the right people, it's just going to be a lot of me... Hopefully, I think it'll be easier just to find one person to talk to and learn about their ideas than it would be to find, okay, we got this one person who thinks this, we got this other person who thinks this. They both have a similar amount of knowledge on the topic. They both have a similar temperament that they could talk to each other about it. I think until then, it's... Oh, excuse me. I do ultimately want it to be about debates.
So debating, let's talk about debating.
But until then, there's nothing that says I can't just have someone on just to talk about what they think and what they've got to say.
So say you figure out 30 minutes is your perfect podcast. Okay. Is your title going to be like, do you put pineapple on pizza? I'm just going to throw that out as an example. Well, and
Is the
then
title
your whole
gonna be the
30 minutes is
debaters?
going to be a debate about the question that is in your title? Or you can debate about multiple things?
I don't know.
Because how could you spend 30 minutes debating that?
Well, I think maybe this will help. I'll take it from a different angle. So how I think I'm going to find people to be on the podcast. First off, it's going to be hard because no one currently is listening to this. I don't have exactly an audience. I don't really have a social media presence either, so it's just going to be some weirdo.
And we live in a small place.
And
Like,
we live in a
yeah,
small
we don't
place.
have like famous people. What's going to draw an audience with just basic
So
people?
what I'm saying is, the way that I want to first get people on the podcast is I want to find something that I'm interested in, which is a topic that I have an interest in. Find people who maybe are talking about it online, maybe have written about it, maybe have talked about it. Ask them if they'd be interested in talking more about it with me on the podcast, and we'll just see where it goes.
All right. Yeah, that could work.
Yeah.
Yeah, the podcasts are tough. I don't know what draws the audience. I feel like you have to have a clear cut thing. And I think for you, when you were saying you don't want to have to research something for days and days.
That's not what
the problem is when you're debating.
The point of this podcast almost is because and the reason I want to do debates is because people have lots of opinions, and everybody has an opinion, especially like very controversial issues. Everybody's got an opinion, but nobody's really got the time to do the research.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can listen, like I can listen to, and I hate how we keep saying Joe Rogan. It feels we're name dropping on a podcast that has no listeners. We're name dropping the biggest podcast that exists. Whatever.
But he's just the one we listen to a lot.
Yeah.
And he has such a variety. Right. Obviously, I think that's the only name you can really drop, is the one that everyone knows.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he'll have someone on, and I'll listen to him for 3 hours, and I'll be completely convinced that this person is right.
Yeah.
Then he'll have someone else on that says the opposite fucking thing.
That's actually the point.
And now I'm convinced that person's right. So the idea behind this is... Okay, still recording. The idea behind this is you get those two people in the same place at the same time and make them battle the ideas out.
So
together.
You're not debating.
I'm moderating.
Oh, okay. I was thinking you want to debate somebody. I'm like, you're gonna have to research if you're gonna debate somebody.
No.
So you want to bring in two people to debate each other on a topic.
Yeah.
And hope they don't go to blows.
Well, here's what because obviously there's not gonna be a lot of people traveling to Grand Ridge, Illinois to be on my podcast with 0 listeners. So it would be like a video debate, and maybe I'd have, and I don't know exactly how. I've never moderated a debate before. Maybe I'd have the power to okay, this person's out of control. Cut his mic.
Yeah, you can mute people. Yeah, you would have control. Yeah, I don't know. I think that goes down a completely different road because then is it a podcast then? It is.
It's a debate podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That would be an interesting one. Yeah, you got me. This went a different direction. It's a different direction than I anticipated. I did not view it.
Well, I had a hard time explaining at first exactly what it was because I didn't really know what it was going to be. But really, I want to bring on different kinds of people with different viewpoints. But what the ultimate goal is to get two people who have opposite views on something that's very controversial and get them to hash it out so that people listening can decide for themselves
who won the debate.
Not necessarily who won, but which ideas are more valid. Or maybe even just realize that, I still think what I thought originally, but I don't think the person who thinks the opposite of me is a piece of shit. Because there's a lot of things where you've got one opinion and everybody who disagrees with you in your mind is a piece of shit. And I feel like just listening to different people debate each other kind of it humanizes people, and it makes you realize that they don't necessarily have bad intentions. They're not evil. They just have a different opinion than you.
Would you also agree, though, that someone that's debating about something intelligently, rather than people just yelling at each other and they have no knowledge, they just are so set in their way because someone told them to be set in that way,
or just trying to win the argument, not necessarily present ideas?
Yes. Don't you feel like you know a lot more people like that than people that are actually educated about?
It's going to be hard to find the right people.
So that's why, I guess, for you right now, how are you anticipating getting to that point? How are you just going to find two educated people? Because I can just see it kind of being people that you may know that could debate something, but neither one of them are going to really know the topic.
Well, I think if I can convince enough people just to come on solo, just to talk about their opinions, and maybe I start getting more viewers, and then if I have viewers, then people will actually want to be on the podcast and more people will know about it. And at that point, maybe some people will start volunteering, or maybe I can reach out to people and have a little bit more pull just because I've got a platform at that point.
So yeah, I mean, it's never easy because you got to figure out what's the route you're gonna go. I do think it's harder for you to be in that situation than to just have a podcast where you bring somebody on and talk, than to find two people that are educated that are gonna battle each other.
Yeah.
One thing I thought of that I think is cool, and maybe it's something that you take a couple podcasts and kind of get yourself established as the podcast host and just kind of preparing like some content, and then as you get a little bit of growth, you bring in two people. I thought of something that always interested me. You have people you'll be somewhere and they're talking about work or they're talking about their life. They do this, they do that. Something that you do not relate to at all. There's plenty of my friends. I don't actually know how they spend their days, but they're like my best friends and I talk to them all the time. So I was like, all right, I think about two of my friends outside my head that I'm like, I know they do like have a good job and I have the idea, but like, how do they spend every day? And then after that, what prepares them in the morning? I think me and you are on the same page as far as we know how to get ourselves in a good place in the morning. Do we always do it? Absolutely not. But I'm saying that we at least know what it takes. Is my buddy who goes and climbs electrical poles and fixes all the electrical stuff on a pole, which I know nothing about, is he waking up?
Are you saying this is like a potential topic for podcasts?
For a podcast, like basically
how do you
bringing
spend
people
your day?
in.
Interesting.
Like think about Austin Walter. Again, we name dropped you. Sorry, Austin. You talked about maybe having him on. He has a cattle farm. I know nothing about what it takes to have a cattle farm. Not one thing. How does your day look? 6 o'clock, I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. We take him to the butcher. We process it. We sell it in the market. I don't even know. Do they sell it?
It's just kind of like you're coming up with like potential lines of questioning for people.
Essentially, you're finding out how people are spending their people that you maybe are like, oh, I know
that is
him.
Interesting.
But like, oh, you work at this factory. What do you do every day? Like, do you know what Hunter does every day?
I can't imagine.
That's my point. Is you don't know how he spends his day. Granted, we all know where we go to work, but we don't really know how our days are spent. Like on the days where you talk to nobody, you don't communicate with somebody all day, from start to finish. What does your day look like? Is it like I'm at the door at this time, I grab a really quick lunch because I want to get off early, or is it like I work really late hours, I come home, I shower, and it's already time for bed? Like just kind of like how people spend their day.
That does make me curious because I wonder sometimes, because I'm really bad with time management. I wonder what other people are doing to get, because it feels like everybody's getting more done than I am.
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder what other people are. That's interesting.
I don't, and honestly, truthfully, you could learn from it as well.
That's what I'm saying.
100%. And I think then the listeners learn, and like that's something I would listen to. Like I don't. If you brought in somebody that we both know, mutual friend, Luis.
That could be like a category of episode, like name it something special, or it's just someone going through their day.
Like what would Lane be considered? Like a horse farmer? Call it?
Well, they have like they farm and then they board horse
boarding or something, right? Where I know nothing, you don't know anything about that. Somebody who lives in New York would be like, what? They do what?
Yeah.
They hold how many horses? They have how many acres? Like that'd be cool.
I actually do think
I run into this problem a lot because when people ask me what I do, they don't know. And I'm like, I don't know what you do. I know where you work. I know people that work at the sand plant. What do you do with the sand plant?
Yeah.
And how is your day spent every single day? What are you doing to earn your paycheck every single day?
Right. People are like, oh, I work here or there. And you're just like, well, what do you do?
Because truthfully, I'm going to be honest with you. I hate when people ask me what I do. And I also don't really want to ask people what they do because it just feels like it leads to a weird conversation. And truthfully, do you care how people spend their day? Probably not.
No, but I would... Some context I do, like in this like I would be interested to hear like when you like from wake up to go to bed, what is your day like? I don't want to hear the nuances of the fucking machine you stand behind at work every day. I don't need to hear all that, but I am interested to hear how people spend their day.
Yeah, I think that would have been pretty cool just because we know so many people with such a variety of jobs. And again, this all leads up to ultimately, if you want it to be a bake podcast, then it can be. Maybe it doesn't happen until episode 50. I don't know. But you have to establish
and there could even be different types of podcasts. Like there's one I listen to, what's it called? Real AF. Where like there's some podcasts, they're like Q&As, like people submit questions, he answers. There's some podcasts where he's like breaking down like news articles online. There's some where he's like talking about like this program that he runs, and the people do the program 75 Hard, and he like he'll break that down. There's just different. He does different types of podcasts, all in the same under the same name of Real AF.
Do you have any interest in like something that would be like you bring in two people that are fairly educated, like they at least can have a pretty decent debate. You have like a bowl of debatable topics, and you pull it, and then you're picking. You're on this side, and you're on this side, and they have to debate, and we have to win the debate.
No, because here's the thing: is that's kind of like just debate for the sake of debate.
Yeah.
I like the idea of debate because I think it makes you really flesh your ideas out.
No, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with what you're saying, and I think it would be so interesting. I just think it'll be hard to find.
It is, and
good people.
It's going to take a while, and I feel like the better guests I can bring on, the bigger audience I can get. Not necessarily just guests. It's how well I do the podcast, how well I market it, how good a guest. I don't know. There's probably a lot of things I don't understand. I had to do a lot of research. But the bigger that I can make the podcast, the better talent I can get, I think.
Yeah, no, I definitely believe that. And that's what we're trying to hash out. I mean, when we thought about a couple different things a couple days ago about like podcasts, and we had a different thought of how we wanted this one to go 2 days ago than we decided today. But I think ultimately is you kind of just got to throw yourself out there. We start talking about it. I think we have a much better idea right now already.
No, and I get nervous because I know the first, how many? Probably 50 episodes I do. They're gonna be terrible because I'm not gonna know what to say. I'm gonna be nervous. I'm not gonna be like in the right headspace, and I just know they're gonna be bad. And it's hard to commit to something knowing that for a long time you're just gonna be bad.
So I would say right now that you're not doing bad at all. Would you?
Well, I appreciate that you say that, but I just want. I mean,
what makes this one different than the next one?
Well, this is different because this is the pilot. This is just like I was kind of fleshing it out.
So if you have something that you actually want to talk to somebody about, if you're bringing somebody on and you know this is what they do, and you're trying, and you don't have to prepare. You just come in and you say, all right, you introduce the person, they talk about what they do, and then it's the problem is you have to like actually be engaged in what they do. When they leave, you should know how their day looks and like be like, man, I couldn't imagine my day looking like that.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for me is going to be staying zoned in the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, that will be the hardest thing for you. Oh, God. This kid has that problem. He'll look right through me. I'll say something. He'll then 5 minutes later say, wait, what'd you say? Yeah. So he does have that problem. I think it's also a good way for you, too, who does zone out. And I think this is a good way for you to get your thoughts out there, too.
No, I agree. I've always thought that more people should know what I think.
Yeah, I think I know what you think more than anybody, and I still don't know.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like based on how our life has went together, we're very, very close in age, just a year apart. But depending on whatever was happening in life at that point, we were always like we just got closer and closer with age, and then we lived together for what 2 years?
About 2 years, I think.
And no, then I felt like I knew exactly where you were, but hopefully, the listeners get to meet Hunter. That would be a real treat.
I think I'm going to ask Hunter to be my producer.
Oh, God.
He's going to be my young Jamie.
Oh, my God. Oh, but yeah, we all lived together for a while, and it would be so funny because Luke has his times where he just wants to be alone. Everyone has it. And I've actually learned this from him that I never had before. I was someone that was like always doing shit. And then when I lived with him and I realized like there was days he gets home and he's just dialed in on himself. We would be in the kitchen. We could touch each other if we wanted to. We wouldn't say a word to each other. It would just honestly, it would be silent.
This is gonna sound weird, but some of my favorite mornings where we'd be like getting ready together and just no one would be saying a word.
And I'm good with that. Man. Where Hunter come walking out, producer young Jamie come walking out, and he'd just be like, "What's up, Luco?" Like so normal. Luke would barely answer, and I'd just be staring at her like, "Why are you even talking to him right now?" But that's something I learned from you that I'm like, this is good for you because it gives you an opportunity to kind of speak. It's very hard to talk to people a lot because people are always trying to talk over you. So like someone that doesn't have that demanding presence of like, I just am loud. So like I'll talk over somebody or you don't. So a lot of your thoughts just kind of get locked up and they don't come out because you didn't have an opportunity to say it because people are talking over you. So this is a great opportunity for someone to actually listen. No, I did not get
very many words in when you and Hunter were all
No, he was quiet most of the time. We were just saying very stupid shit because I would be getting what's it called? One of them questions called hypothetical.
Hypothetical.
I would get hypothetical every 30 minutes. So it was an interesting experience, but I think that that's when I first started hearing ideas from him a lot. And I still think of multiple that he has that are still really good.
Yeah, I'm an idea man.
They just take a lot.
Like an execution.
Yes, idea graveyard. Yeah. He has the idea graveyard.
Yeah, we don't gotta get into that yet. That's like episode 10 or 20.
It's too early. I want to comment quick on the studio. The studio is looking good.
It's not bad, right?
The studio is the living room of his home.
My living room.
He does have a absolute shit ton of whiskey on his shelf, so it's sort of like a big time podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Got a lot of money in whiskey.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna be like one of those podcasts where like part of the shtick is that they drink while they talk. I'm just gonna drink and not talk about it. I'm not gonna address it. So
you're just making it right now in the pilot. You will be drinking during the podcast.
And some I will, some I won't, and maybe I'll talk about it, maybe I won't. But I just get annoyed when like there's podcasts where it's like, yeah, we talk about popular topics and we drink a little whiskey, and I just say, shut up, I don't care that you drink whiskey. But I did want to say I did get this professionalized microphone with a boom. I've got headphones.
Yeah, why don't you have the headphones plugged in?
Well, because there's two of us.
I still want you to put them on. I just want to see what it looks like.
I don't know that if it will mess up the audio.
No, I'm just saying, just throw them on.
You don't want me to plug it in?
I just want to see what it looks like. Because they always said it's kind of weird. Because how noise canceling it is.
I personally don't like hearing myself talk in headphones while I'm talking. I don't like that.
How does it sound right now? Is it pretty noise? Like you can't hear me?
No, I can hear you. They're not plugged into anything.
So. I know, but they're still like muffs. I mean, they're like over your ears.
I can hear you just a little quieter.
Yeah, no, I think you need to get another set of those because that's making it really official. I don't even actually know what the point of them is, but
you see them a lot in podcasts.
So you just went with it?
Yeah, I was kind of looking into just like the different stuff you need. And there's like I don't know. I still don't really get it. They kept saying you have to have like a microphone for each person because you want it like a fist away from your face. But the little test videos I was doing, it sounds fine the way we got it. So
a couple feet away from each other. Real quick question regarding your bookshelf. You have a lot of books. I've made it a rule in my house that my mom was always trying to bring books over and like put books on shelves. And I've told her, I don't want a book in my house if I haven't read it.
Really?
Have you read all those?
No, not even close.
And where does this collection come from? You just bought them and just didn't read them, or people gave them to you?
I would say, let me think. Let me look at them. So some of them are just ones I've gotten from like family or friends. A lot of them are ones I bought. I would say of the ones I bought, I bet I've read a third. I bet of the ones I bought, I bet I read a third. But most of them are like I don't know. Grandpa gave me a bunch. He had like a box in his basement, or like when my grandma died, I got a bunch of hers. So they're not all.
They're just random.
A lot of them are just kind of random.
You got extreme ownership over it. I didn't know that.
I never read that one. It's a good book.
I did the podcast, the audiobook. I'm a big audiobook guy. Do you listen to audiobooks?
No, because I don't pay attention well enough.
That's what I was just going to say. Like, I feel like I've been enjoying reading because it's like another form of distraction, but probably a little bit healthier one as far as rather than just like something stupid to listen to. But I try audiobooks because I always convince myself that's the best route to go for me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, yeah, you listen for an hour and you didn't really hear a thing.
And think about, like, you'll get to the end of the page sometimes and realize you didn't really absorb any information. Yeah. You just start back over from the top of the page. You don't know. Like, you're listening to an audiobook and you could zone back in and you don't even know when you zoned out.
And Jocko's tough because, dude, he's just the way he talks is so, like, soothing that I like
the way he talks.
I'm literally was, like, about to pass out.
I've been working on a Jocko impression.
Oh, man.
I don't think I want to break it out.
I was going to say, you're breaking it out on podcast number 1. He's preparing. He's preparing. I'm trying to imagine you sitting in the dark.
I woke up in the morning. 5:30 a.m. Alarm goes off. I press snooze. I go back to bed. 5:35. My alarm goes off again. I press snooze again. I go back to bed. 6:30 rolls around. I miss both of my alarms. I get out of bed. My dog shit and pissed in my kitchen. Good. It was my fault. I should have got out of bed at 5:30.
Oh my god.
That's not bad, right?
Bro, that was actually so good. I also like how you referenced your own dog. Poor balls got thrown into that with the dog shitting and pissing. That was actually not bad. I thought you were going to give me like you were done after the first alarm. That was like a good little snippet.
No, it's like it's kind of like a character where like you talk like Jocko, but you're just a fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have the discipline,
I get that.
but you talk like Jocko.
All you have to do is talk about your failed discipline and just talk like Jocko. Yeah, no, that was actually pretty good. That's
I went
funny.
to work today.
Yeah.
7 a.m. I get to the docks. I detail boats. 9:30, I left because I was anxious and I wanted to go home. I sat on my couch. I smoked a bowl and I fell asleep to Guardians of the Galaxy. That one wasn't as good.
But still, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
You literally just talk about
Talk about your regular day, but as Jocko.
Almost help. I feel like that'll almost help me now.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if I have a rough day like that, where I'd rather just do nothing and be not productive, and then I just like talk about my failures in my day, but talk like Jocko.
Yeah.
And then at the end, just be like, good.
Yeah.
It's my fault.
There's been so many days I've wanted to send that to the group chat, but I just didn't do it.
I actually love it. I am going to absolutely use that now. At the end of my day, when I had a horrible day, I'd be like, good. It's my fault.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's actually good. That's actually a good way to look at that.
Thank you.
I like that. I didn't know you've been working on that, brother.
Thank you. I haven't done it out loud, but I've been thinking about it in my head a lot.
I guess, too, on the first podcast, we probably should talk about what you do.
So I am a detailer. I detail cars and boats mostly. I work for myself. I don't make much money, but I do that, and I'm my own boss, and it's not terrible.
So what he is, I've seen him have some different jobs. He needs to be his own boss. I think 100% you need to be your own boss.
Yes, I can't. I'm not very good at working for other people.
And you started off just very small, and you've gotten yourself to a point where you can be pretty much busy almost every day.
Yeah, no, I'm very close to, because I bartend here and there on the side, and I would say I started full time with this business 3 years ago, and every year I've done less side jobs and more detailing, and I'm very close to just only doing the detailing business.
Yeah, no, I got to see it from basically ground zero, but I think it's like perfect. It's like perfect for the lifestyle you want, because at any point, and you come up with another idea, like the podcast idea, and you ultimately decide, I'm going to do this. How many times have you told me you're going to move to a different place, and you're like, I can just do it. You can just do that. Where you can just take your stuff, whether it's your detailing or not, and go elsewhere where other people get tied down to a commitment of this or that.
Yeah.
And you just get stuck there forever.
Yeah, I could pack up the business and move anytime, because really what I would just do is I would just bartend until I built a client base somewhere else. But it would be cool if the podcast thing worked out, because that's even more freedom.
And as far as working out, to me, I'm like, working out, we think of like the highest level, right? I think that it could just be cool for you to just do, just to have something. Like, it could take so long for anyone to even listen, right? You might have your basic 15 listeners, 20, and then, I don't know. I think even having 15 to 20 listeners for a while, like, I think that'd be just cool.
It would be cool to think about just the fact that someone out there is just listening to me talk just because.
Yeah. So that's why it's just you gotta make it something that we would listen to. Like, would you listen to a debate podcast?
Yeah.
I wouldn't, probably. I just don't like to see people debate. I think.
Well, I would do it because, like, say, like, I've got this opinion. I'm trying to think of an example. Like, okay, here's my thing. Everybody says global warming's real. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But then you hear people that say it is. You hear people that say it isn't. I want to listen to a podcast where one person says it is, one person says it isn't, and then they hash it out, and then by the end of it, I got a pretty good idea what I think is true.
I just worry about how them end. I just worry about how, if it doesn't come to a loud screaming match, how does it end civilized? And you'd have to just have the right people that.
Well, they got to be adults.
Yeah. I don't know. I was big on, like, climate change absolutely is real, but, like, I also am, like, kind of on the board of. I also understand that the planet has been it fluctuates in carbon emissions forever.
Well, here's
heat and cold forever.
Well, it's a perfect example. Here's my opinion on it is I think climate change is real, but it's not as big of a deal as a lot of the media makes it out to be. But I also recognize that if you asked me to back up my opinion, I couldn't. I couldn't cite one study. I couldn't tell you one thing to honestly back up the way I feel. So that's why I think it would be nice to listen to two people who actually know what the fuck they're talking about, hash it out.
We're not really exposed to that, truthfully. We're exposed to people that either know a lot of topics about their opinion. They don't know the other side because they don't want to listen. They don't want to hear them. So they either know a lot about what they believe and nothing about the other side, or they just say, like me and you, we do kind of believe climate change is real, but we don't have anything to back that up to anybody scientifically. So I get what you're saying. That's why I just think it's going to be so hard to find those people.
I bet it's not as hard as you think. I'm here. It's not going to be as hard to find people who are just willing to share their opinion. It will be a little bit harder to find someone who's willing to share their opinion and debate someone else with a different opinion.
And for it not to turn into, like I said, yelling, screaming.
Yeah, but I don't see that being a problem. I'm not just finding people on the street. Like, yeah, I would imagine if this works out and I do get people to come on the podcast, there's going to be some topics we debate. Like, I could think of, like, maybe, like, abortion or something, where people, like one half thinks the other side is literal baby murderers, and the other half thinks it's, like, a bunch of people trying to control women.
Yeah.
So, like, in that extreme circumstance, I can see people getting really riled up. But, like, most things I feel like aren't that serious.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because I don't, at the end of the day, I think I could be perfect for this role because at the end of the day, I don't have a dog in the fight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care all that much about. It's not that I don't care. I do care. I just don't. Like, I know that at the end of the day, I don't really know that much about it. So I guess I don't get that riled up about it.
You get to learn about both sides, and you don't really have.
Yeah.
I worry about, like I said, in the ideal world, the perfect world, they debate it. They both have great points. They both listen to each other, both understand each other. They're not just trying to talk over each other. And at the end of it, they're like, all right, this was, this is great. But that doesn't really happen. It usually turns into a very uncomfortable situation. Someone gets personal. People are pissed. I've never seen like a clean debate. Have you?
I guess I don't really watch debate. I mean, I've heard people argue at the bar.
That's the only
that's our experience of debate.
That is our experience.
It's just people arguing with each other
about stupid shit.
Yes.
Well, who has a better chicken sandwich? Also, let me just throw a quick plug out there. And I gotta say the name, but I don't want to say the name because you know what? They need to be sponsors of the podcast. Yeah. Culver's has the best spicy chicken sandwich.
Really?
They have the best spicy chicken sandwich.
I was gonna say Wendy's.
I'm telling you, you need to go get a Culver's spicy chicken sandwich.
Okay, I'm going to.
I might have to do that tonight on my own.
They're open till 10.
Shit.
We're gonna have to wrap this podcast up.
Honestly, what time? I mean, what are we at right now?
I don't know. I feel like we're getting to the end of the line. This was actually pretty good. I
thought it was pretty productive. We're probably about at 30, 40 minutes. We're checking right now.
38. That's
38
perfect.
minutes. Yeah, I think that's perfect. I think we got a lot of our topics that we want to talk about out there, and now you just kind of gotta sift through and see what you want to do. And we talk about these things all the time, so I'm sure we'll have a lot of conversations. But I don't know.
Well, we didn't get to anything about you.
No,
the original plan.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. But this is how things go. Yeah. You start a business doing one thing, and you end up doing something completely different. I think I'm here more to be your second half of your brain. I will say I feel like second half of his brain sometimes because he'll process something for like 36 hours, and he'll call me to lay it on me.
Yes.
And then he's using.
And you'll say something so simple that I never would have thought of, and it just helps. It helps me.
And typically, I'll ask, "How many hours have you thought about this?" Because if it's an hour, if it's less than 24, I simply will not respond.
That's
so
fair.
This was a couple weeks in the process. Well, you've been wanting to do this for a long time, so
I really have wanted to do this for a long time.
So I think we're good. I'm happy to be here, but like I told you before we're on the air, I expect to be back when it's actually going and not just be used as the brains. And maybe this is something that we just do every once in a while. We just have like a random
I love it.
Conversation.
I love it.
This is
maybe we can come up with a debate. We can debate each other.
You really? He told me that he was going to bring me on to ask me about my business, and then blame my business on his water bill going up. Yeah, he was going to try to throw me under the bus.
Well, because you do.
Well, that
it's a conversation for a different day, but
yes, the things I do are involved.
They're correlated.
But it just so happened I did work for his in the town that he lives in, and then his water bill went up, so I'm getting blamed by him. So he was trying to just bring me on to debate me on that when I told him I did not want to debate. So hopefully I can be back on, but I will definitely be a listener.
Yeah, hopefully we get you back on and we can expose what you're trying to hide.
Okay. All right, wrap her up.
Well, Nick, thank you very much. You have been listening to the Freebase podcast. If you're there, if anyone's out there, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your night.